is Nikki Dillon-Morales. Nikki will present the Competent Communicator Project number 2, Organize Your Speech. The goal in this project is to present an easy-to-follow, well-organized speech with a clear message. Nikki will present life lessons she learned while traveling in her early 20s. Please join me in welcoming Nikki as she presents 3 little life lessons from 3 very big continents.
Imagine the most exotic place that you can think of in the world. Some place you've never been, some place you've always wanted to go. What are some of those places? Gotta get the brain going.
Bali.
Beijing.
Now imagine that you've just stepped off an airplane in that location, all alone. What's the first thing you would do? Where would you go? What would you eat? You're on your own now. The success of this trip is completely dependent on you. Traveling alone can be a really nerve-wracking experience. You're in an unknown place, outside of your comfort zone, and far away from your family and friends. But you should do this at least once in your life. It's absolutely critical to your spiritual growth. I found myself in this very position in my early 20s when I got the opportunity to travel the world for both business and pleasure. I'm going to share with you 3 little life lessons that I unexpectedly learned while traveling to 3 very large continents on this planet. My story starts in 2009 when I found myself in Australia. Like many people, I'd never been there before. And this was one of the first times I was truly away from friends and family completely. I had the opportunity to visit the University of Queensland to conduct a research project for about a year's length. I essentially stepped off the airplane and immediately contracted swine flu. So things weren't exactly going as planned. I was in a brand new country, learning to navigate a whole continent of opportunity, and here I am, sick. You know, when you travel alone, you don't have anyone to tell you what to do, and you don't have to answer to anyone. And this is totally empowering, but it's also a huge responsibility. So here I am, 21 years old. I've actually never myself used health insurance because I'm a little bit spoiled. So I'm navigating a new healthcare system, going to doctors on my own, and I'm quarantined in my dorm room as well. And they're treating me like I have the plague. So it was a pretty interesting first weeks on the ground. But you know, I'm scrappier than I think I am. And I learned that I am perfectly capable of taking care of myself. Let's fast forward to 2009. I've just finished my research in Australia, and I've decided to detour to Asia before heading back to the United States. Spend some time in Japan, and then head down to Southeast Asia, where I land in Thailand, which becomes one of my favorite places on earth. I spent 4.5 months there. Towards the end of my trip, I decided to head up to Chiang Mai, which is in northern Thailand. It's the 2nd largest city, but it is quite remote. There are tons of jungles. It is a beautiful, beautiful place. Spent a lot of my time talking to strangers, learning to trust my intuition, learning when not to trust my intuition, before I decided to go on a 3.5-week trekking trip in the jungles of Chiang Mai. I'm a city girl from Chicago. I think I've shared that with school in Washington, D.C. I've never been hiking before. I don't know why I thought in my head, like, this is a great idea. Like, let's definitely go on a 3.5-week camping trip. I've literally never hiking, never camping, not an outdoorsy person. Still not an outdoorsy person. That trip did not help this. So we set off on this hiking trip, and we're staying in these local villages, in basically tents that are maybe buildings, maybe they have a roof, maybe they don't. It's raining on us. You have to carry your water on your back. They do not have plumbing. You have to bring your own toilet paper. I know none of these things. So I'm in for another pretty big surprise. On day 2, they're asking us to crawl across these rotted trunks to go from side to side, to get on elephants' backs and go through the riverbeds, riding on swimming elephants. Not the most stable transportation. I was basically terrified. Big culture shock. But you quickly learn that being full of fear does not help you grow. So you strap on those boots, and you replace those stomach-churning butterflies with the kind of butterflies that actually make your soul soar. And that's kind of what I learned there. I learned to embrace new experiences instead of fearing them. After I returned from Asia to the United States, I finished my college degree and obtained a consulting position, which took me to my new territory in Africa. Wow, what an incredible opportunity, right? Traveled all over Africa, primarily doing business in South Africa. So in 2011, I'm sitting in Cape Town, all by myself once again, and I decide to do some more adventurous tourism, because by this point, I've got some great experience. You know, I've got the 3.5 weeks of trekking under my belt, I've been to a few different places. I think that I've got this travel thing down to a T. So I decide I should go diving with great white sharks. I've been an avid scuba diver for my whole life, so this is really just a natural progression for me. And like I said, I think, at this point, I'm a huge risk taker. This is going to be awesome. So I head off way out into the countryside, get on this very small, rickety boat. It's about 40 degrees out, by the way. So very cold, we're in our wetsuits, and I'm standing on the top deck of this boat, and I look down, and I can see the sharks circling around the boat, and I'm not joking. The boat is this big, and the sharks were this big. They were longer than the boat. Very interesting experience, to say the least. That said, as I stood there looking at those sharks, I said, no one else would do this with me. I am the only person who would do this with me. You realize that as you become your own favorite travel partner, you're also kind of your favorite person. I was like, yeah, I am awesome. Because when we learn about the world, we really learn about ourselves. And you really take away that the relationship that you have with yourself is the most important relationship. You're going to learn innumerable things if you just muster up the courage to book a plane ticket and go off on a journey. You may be terrified. You may be shaking in those brand new hiking boots. But in the end, you're going to be so thankful that you did it. You've heard my little life lessons that I unexpectedly learned. What will yours be? Thank you.